Hey, it's John at Tinderbox Arts. In the mess I have going here in my garage, on this side I have my R1200RT and I'm doing some maintenance on it today. I wanted to talk to you about oxygen sensors or lambda sensors if you're in Europe. And I want to talk to you about why and how you would go about replacing those. Now, if I get in close here, I can show you an example of what we're talking about. Here's the exhaust right here, and right here where my finger pointing, that's the oxygen sensor, a lambda sensor. And there's one on each side, one for each cylinder. Now, in a previous video, I described how oxygen sensors work and how to test them. So if you want some more detail on that, you should look at that video. Now, the bike in front of us is a 2012 model year, but this goes for any model year. What we have in front of us here is a throttle body fuel injection. So we have fuel injectors here, one on each side, and the throttle body with a butterfly valve to allow air in. Now, fuel injected bikes and cars, and trucks for that matter too, are controlled by a computer, an ECU we'll call it. And that computer has a whole bunch of sensors that allows it to understand what's going on as you're riding the bike or driving the car, whatever it might be. So other sensors include things like throttle position sensor, wheel sensors so it knows how fast the bike is rolling down the road, temperature sensors. So all of these things provide input for the ECU, and the ECU has a set of tables or mapping that it uses to refer to. So at any particular point in time, it's looking at these maps or tables and it's taking the input from the sensors and trying to determine the most efficient, the ideal air-fuel ratio using the fuel injection that it has at its disposal. So the oxygen sensors here in the exhaust are examining, as you might imagine, the exhaust content and comparing it to the oxygen content of the ambient air. So if you want to think of it this way, the oxygen sensor is sort of like a quality control manager for the ECU. So things like fuel economy, performance, and emissions all depend on getting to that most ideal air-fuel mixture, and that's why this quality control of the oxygen sensor is so important. Now, the oxygen sensors on these R1200 bikes is a narrow band as opposed to a wide band. The narrow band oxygen sensors output a voltage between 0 and 1. That's the maximum range. So for the ECU, it's going to be looking for a voltage between those two numbers, and that helps it determine, what the oxygen level is in the exhaust. So that's some basic background on oxygen sensors. Now let's talk about what can go wrong with them. They are typically trouble-free. I mean, you get tens of thousands of miles out of them. In the automotive world, the rule of thumb for a narrow-band oxygen sensor might be that you get as much as 60,000 miles out of one. Now, one problem that I talked about in that earlier video was a lazy oxygen sensor. And that really just means that as the sensor gets older, it tends to be sluggish. It doesn't really respond as quickly as it used to when it was new. So in that case, it won't be a catastrophic sort of thing. You will get reduced fuel economy, for example. And similarly, the performance can suffer. So as we get up into, 50, 60, 70,000 mile range, we might look at that and we can put a meter on the sensor itself and see how it does respond and see if it is sluggish. Now let's take a closer look underneath here. The oxygen sensor is screwed directly into the exhaust, and obviously the sensor itself is designed to take a lot of heat. As a matter of fact, this particular type of sensor has a built-in heater. It's a 4-wire sensor because of that heater itself requires some electrical capacity, and that's designed to heat the sensor up quickly when you start the bike so that the computer doesn't have to wait a longer time for the data. If we look underneath here, here's the wiring from the sensor itself. The connector to the rest of the harness is right here. Another point to make here is that the wiring is held in place by these plastic ties here, and that can damage the wiring itself too. So between the heat and the ties, this wiring and these connectors can take a beating, and they can just break a wire, or the brittle plastic here can break, and in that case you will get a signal that disappears, and the ECU will certainly complain about that. So the two primary reasons to replace an oxygen sensor are the sluggishness or laziness that comes with age, or you actually have a broken wire or a connector that has failed. So that brings me to this particular bike. Why have I chosen to replace the oxygen sensors on this bike? Well, it has about 50,000 miles on it, so there's probably some more life left in the oxygen sensors. The last time I checked the sensors with a meter, they were a little bit sluggish, but not terrible. I mean, they're still functional. The wiring on these two oxygen sensors on this bike does show some evidence of heat and of age. So that is a little bit concerning because I take this on long trips and I don't really want to be out in the middle of nowhere and have a wire break on me. So I probably could get another maybe 10,000 miles out of these sensors without too much trouble, but what I've discovered just recently is that these are getting difficult to buy. So because of that difficulty, I decided now would be the time to replace these oxygen sensors while I can still get something. So where do we stand as far as availability right now in 2026? Let me first talk about the model years from 2010 through 2013. Now that's the R1200RT, the GS, all those similar bikes. The OEM oxygen sensor is this number right here. And again, it's a 4-wire, 18 millimeter narrow band oxygen sensor. That's extremely common. What makes it different is that the manufacturer, in this case BMW, uses a specific connector to the harness. Otherwise, this is going to be exactly the same as a million others. So that's the number for the OEM model. Now, if you wanted an exact match from a third party, I believe what I found is that the NGK or NTK 28034 is an exact match to the OEM. So an exact match would be great, but I have not found anywhere in the United States to buy this. It might be available other places. Maybe there's somebody who sells it, has a few left, but by and large, this is discontinued by NGK and it's difficult to find. Okay, so the next thing, after I did some research, I found another NGK version. This is 28027. Now, the sensor itself is going to be identical, but the cable, the wiring, is longer than it needs to be. It has the same connector, but the wire in between is longer than it needs to be. So I could use this. I just have to figure out a way to kind of tie up that additional cable. I also found that this Walker, this number right here, might be a match. I haven't confirmed it. The Denso, this number, and the Bosch and this number could also be a match, but again, I have not confirmed that. I also found there's a possible automotive match. So the 2017 BMW 430i car with a 4-cylinder engine uses oxygen sensors that look awfully similar. So if you're going to an auto parts store, you might be able to look up a sensor using this car. Now you might be wondering why I don't just go to a dealer and get the OEM model and be done with it. Well, the price on this OEM oxygen sensor here in the United States is $383. That's not just obscene, it's an actual insult. I was able to find this 28027 from an auto parts store for about $85 each. Now let me mention one more thing. They do make universal oxygen sensors you can buy. These come with the sensor itself, wires attached to the sensor, and at the end of those wires, you need to use a special connector that they provide. You could use that on this bike, but it's a very bulky connector, and tucking that away underneath the RT, I think, would be very difficult. All right, it's been a few days. We actually had a blizzard come through, but the oxygen sensors are here. And these are NTK, and again, the number from NTK is 28027. I'm just opening these up now for myself. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. I held it up in the packaging before I opened it to see if it looked the same, and it looks pretty darn good. Now, this cable, I know, is going to be too long, but it's not crazy long. This connector looks correct. The sensor itself looks correct. I do want to check that the wires, at least the colors of the wires, are the same as the old. All right, here under the bike, I'm lying on the ground here. I removed the crash bar so we can actually see some things. The sensor's right here, of course. I'm going to show you how to remove that. What I'm going to do off camera here in a second, there's some zip ties right here, here, and here, and I want to get those off and get this disconnected. This connector right here to the harness itself is connected to a bracket right here. So the plastic harness here has a little catch right in the middle there. And you need to take a small screwdriver or a machinist pick and pull that aside. It slides in up here to this plastic connector. Here's a better shot of the new one so you can see. So it's this middle catch right here, little arm there, that plastic arm. You push it to one side and it allows you to slide this whole connector out. Now while I got the new oxygen sensor here, I'll show you that when you buy a new sensor, there's a little cap right here. Underneath the cap is some anti-seize lubricant, and it's applied at the factory. That's how much you use. However much they give you, that's how much you use. You don't add any more. And this cap is going to go back on for now. And the old sensor could be rusted in place, could be difficult to get out. So how are we going to manage this? Well, you have two options really. If the connector on one end here allows it, you can use a box wrench and slide it over the connector. Or if you don't care about saving the old oxygen sensor, you can just cut the wires. Either way, if allowed, you can run this right over that and put the box end on the hex business end here. And we're gonna give that a good whack using a big hammer, okay? And that should bust it loose. If not, we can start looking at heat and potentially some lubricants to help remove it. The other way of doing this is to use this, which is a specialized tool meant to go over, see there's a cutout right here. It goes over the wire, so you can do this in place very easily. Slide this over, and again, it'll get a purchase on that hex area right there. That hex is either 22 millimeter or 7/8, either one will work. You would use a breaker bar here that goes on the end like that. All right, let's see if we get a camera angle in here. I'm not sure it will. So here's the connector. I'm just going to slide this over the end here to get it to a good position. I guess that's going to do it right there. Let me get this connector out of the way. All right, so that's in there pretty good. Definitely not moving. So next I'm going to try some heat on the exhaust. Now honestly, a heat gun would be a smarter move. I do have one, but I'm too lazy to go get it. So I'm just going to try to be careful with a torch here and just heat up around the sensor, not on the sensor itself. Okay, that did it. Just a little bit of heat, wasn't too much. With the old and the new sensors side by side, I can check them to make sure that they are the same, and they are identical. So remember, this plastic cap is coming off here. That's just there for shipping. So the old one, I've checked the thread length. I've checked the length of the sensor tip itself to make sure it's inside the exhaust the correct amount. Even all this up here looks the same. It's identical. I've checked the wires for coloring to make sure that, you know, the same wires are being connected when we use the factory harness, and that's correct. So this all looks good. The only difference is that the new one here has additional cable length that we don't need. It's about 6 inches longer than we actually need. You'll also notice that the tip of the original sensor here, it has a coating on it, which is normal. This one's gray in color, and you know, it's got a lot of use on it. It's got 50,000 miles on it. Now, just to be thorough in this video, I know someone's going to ask me this. They're going to ask, why not take this connector apart, shorten up the wires, and reconnect the pins inside here, because those pins are probably just crimped onto the wires. So as long as you don't use solder, that would be okay. Well, it is a two-piece connector, and the pins are buried in here somewhere, so there looks like a little catch right here. I tried messing with it with a screwdriver. This is the old one, mind you. And it's not coming apart very easily. So can that be done? Can you shorten up these wires so that it is identical to the old one? Yeah, probably. But given the cost of these, I don't think I'm going to mess with a new one. Now we're looking at the old one still, but I want to show you something here. All of these sensors will have a crush washer. And that crush washer it's really a one-time use. You're not really supposed to be taking this apart and putting it back together. So the new oxygen sensor will have that crush washer, and the directions point out that you're supposed to put this in finger tight and then do another half turn. But if you've done this before with spark plugs, it's really the same idea. So I'm just going to remove this plastic cover, which is there for protection, carefully. And you'll see there's just a little bit of anti-seize there on the threads. You don't want to get that on the sensor tip itself, so take this off carefully. I used a wire brush on the exhaust just to get that little bung that this screws into just cleaned up, make sure there's no rust on it. And I'm just going to do this by hand. And what's tricky is this cable wants to twist around while you're doing this, so it's sort of annoying, but you just want to be careful of that tip so we don't damage it. Get that started. And I help the wire twist. Actually, I'm going to do this as I'm turning it in so I don't twist those wires. All right, that's finger tight. I actually went in pretty good. The connector. Oh, I want to go the other way. And they're saying half a turn. I do it by feel. Well, that is about half a turn. So that's good. Installed. Let me get this out of the way. Now I just need to figure out a way to connect this and tuck the wires underneath here so it's not in the way. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to do that. Alright, I've got the wiring all buttoned up. Really not too bad. What you end up with is an extra loop right here. You can see there's an extra loop that was not there before, but it's totally out of the way. It's not going to catch on anything. This is all tied together right here the way it was before from the factory. That's factory, so it all looks pretty good. Remember, if I get this right here, there's a cover that goes over everything. Let's see if I have this right. Something like that. All right, the opposite side here cleaned up very nicely. Again, there's extra cable here, but nothing that can't be looped, and that actually gets completely covered. So this all worked out very well. When I remove the other side, this is exactly what I was talking about in the beginning. This plastic connector has just become brittle. So that middle arm that was right here just snapped off as soon as I touched it. And on the other side, there's a piece of plastic here which holds the other side of the connector in place, and that just snapped off as soon as I touched it. All right, real quick before I put this bike back together, I'm going to start it up and run some live data using the GS911 software. All right, this is looking good. It's still in a warm-up phase. And you can see the sensor heating is on and off, but these are responding quickly. I don't see any issues. They're working normally, but it's freezing cold outside, so I'm going to close the garage door and call this a day.